So, Paul, you ready?
When you are.
Cool! Welcome to One Good Thing, the podcast that tries to find the one master adventurer that hasn't been retired by the Keen Act. Today we're doing the
Watchmen. Watchmen?
What are you doing?
What?
I thought you were defending this.
No. This is you defending this.
But if you're not defending it,
and I'm not defending it. Literally the worst. So, hello and welcome to One Good Thing, the podcast that's not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with it.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh, menacing.
I know. Today we shall be discussing, debating, decorating, defenestrating Zak Snyder's Watchmen, the 2009 adaptation of Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons' Titanic graphic novel. I had struggled with the word Gibbons.
That will be the hardest test, the greatest test of all.
That's why he's so maligned by history for his contribution, is because his name is tricky. I think I just noticed it's like a gibbon, like a monkey, like only just. So
wow.
So like I think it sort of took me by surprise.
Oh, be prepared for some deep cuts here today, ladies and gentlemen.
Have you ever noticed? This is the truth about Watchmen. Have you ever noticed? Okay, so the movie split critics like a fat slug crawling down a razor. It has 65% on Rotten Tomatoes and 56% on Metacritic. This quote is from Kyle Smith at the New York Post. Director Zak Snyder's cerebral, scintillating follow-up to 300 seems as fresh and magnificent in sound and vision as 2001 must have seemed in 1968.
Wow. That's a very pro-Watchmen, man.
That's extraordinarily pro-Watchmen. On the flip side, we've got Philip Kennicott, the Washington Post, who said Watchmen is a bore! It sinks under the weight of its reverence for the original.
Okay, I see what you've done.
Yeah. So, Paul, you goddamn lunatic.
Hello.
What's something stupid that you do at 3 a.m?
Oh, watch the director's cut of Watchmen.
From 3 to 3:01 in increments over the last 4 years.
Yeah, worth pointing out that today we did watch the director's cut of Watchmen and not the theatrical cut.
But not the ultimate cut.
Not the ultimate cut.
Yes.
I don't know what we were hoping for. Maybe for a la Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, it was going to be even better.
Wow.
And we could defend something that was not just a pretty flower.
Yeah, but also one with heroin dripping out of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Into our snouts. So it ended up being a bit of a mixed bag.
The director's cut did, yes. Certainly.
Yes. One of the great things about these OGT patented defense of episodes is that we have to state in advance the one that we're going to defend, and then we have to watch it after typically a few years of having not seen it.
Yeah.
We've grown as people.
Yeah, we have changed. The world has changed.
Yeah.
Comic book movies have come a long way in the last 7 years.
They have indeed.
We've seen all of them.
We've done terrible things.
We've done terrible things to women and children.
Worth getting into.
It's an alternate history.
Mm-hmm.
It diverged somewhere around the 40s and 50s in which cops started dressing up as superheroes to take on sort of eccentric villains.
Yes.
And that's it. And from there it spiraled on.
That was the razor's edge. Everything went well different after that.
That was the butterfly effect.
Yeah.
Is if 5 cops dress up as masked lunatics, then tornadoes happen all over the world.
And so what happened, a whole bunch of crazy things happened. Like Nixon was elected for the
As a result,
time.
Yes, due to 2 things. Firstly, the superheroes were able to... one of them is a superhero. In the 1950s, a superhero is born. He's the only one with actual powers. The rest are just people in costumes. So they are able to win the Vietnam War and murder Woodward and Bernstein before the Watergate scandal. As a result, Nixon is able to win a historic 5 terms in office. And he has passed an act which has outlawed vigilantism after a series of police strikes. And so here we are. We have one of the superheroes who continued working for the government and so was allowed to stay a superhero, Edward Blake, the comedian, a man who sees all the world as a joke and chooses to be a parody of it. He is quickly murdered in his apartment Someone sneaks in and murders him. Throws him out a window.
Sneakily murders him.
Yeah.
By throwing him out of a window.
Shh.
It's complex stuff. But yes, so after that.
Yeah. Investigating.
Yes, there is investigating from Rorschach.
Yes.
Who is a nihilistic sort with a very cut and dry view of morality.
Yes, it's good, there's bad, they never overlap.
Yes. Never, ever, ever. After that, we are introduced to Dreiger.
Yes. Well, Rorschach is now convinced that someone, after discovering that this guy is the comedian, he is convinced that someone is now gunning for masks.
Yeah.
You know, all the ex-people, even though one person has died.
That's a pattern.
Yeah, one thing is a pattern. That's how it goes. 1 is a pattern. 2 is a coincidence.
2's a crowd.
3 is an accident.
3's a bloody mess. Yes, so to stop it from becoming a bloody mess, Rorschach visits Dan Dreiger,
the Night
Owl, the second.
The second Night Owl. Yeah.
Yes, who to warn him and to try and sort of
get the old team back
together. Get him motivated.
Maybe. Yeah,
because he's gone a bit Dadbody, hasn't he? He's gone a bit dad.
He's gone a bit Dad Patrick Wilson.
Yeah, and he's a little bit. So Rorschach came in. He's like, don't be all that. Let's do the crime solving properly this time.
Yeah, but Dan Dreiberg's like, not really.
Got a TV's on.
Even though Dan blew him off, he decides to go visit Adrian Veidt, something that doesn't happen in the book. Adrian Veidt is the smartest man in the world and has sold out, revealing himself, unmasking himself, exposing himself to the public. There's so many other synonyms for that concept. I'll name them all. He exposes himself. He demystifies himself, parts the kimono.
He violates the world.
He does.
With his presence.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's a rich guy, and he's capitalizing on the old Watchmen, selling action figures and posters and such. But he's also selling all sorts of other things, like a perfume called Nostalgia, and he's trying to fix the world's energy problems. Yes, he just says, comedian was a Nazi, I wanted to kill him. Not that I did.
Yeah.
But but anyone could have. Yeah. Anyone had a motive. Even me.
And Dan Dreiger goes, anyway, I'll see you later, Adrian. That's a funny guy.
He doesn't remember why we don't hang out.
Funny guy. Rorschach then picks up the investigation. It's like a tag team through the ether.
Yes.
And he takes his game to Dr. Manhattan.
Yes.
And Laurie, aka
Jupiter or Jusipix.
Yeah, Uzbekchik, I think.
Uzbekchik.
Yeah, according to Poland.
According to Poland. You can believe what they've got to say. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Glug, glug, glug. He goes and checks. He goes and meets them. They are interred and sort of held captive in a government facility.
Yeah, they're free to leave at any time.
She is.
Yeah.
But she will be followed.
Just want to know where they're going, is all.
Just, what are you up to? You're cheating on Dr. Manhattan? So Dr. Manhattan is like the world's national security. He is the world's national security. He's America's national security. If the Ruskies launch the nukes, he'll vaporize them all and kill all of them by turning them into sheep and then sort of massacring them. That's how he does it.
Yeah, it's essential that it's sheep first, then bludgeoning.
Yeah, he can't
turns them into sheep and then turns to the size of a planet and then squishes them all with his big like whack-a-mole hands.
It's how he does it. He just loves it.
He's a bit of a wrong 'un, isn't he?
Yeah, he's not very good.
No, but he's equally not that perturbed when Rorschach comes in because he sees all time as a singularity, don't he?
Yeah, he does that. And when you do that, I don't know if you've done that, but when you do that, you do that, don't you? Though.
Oh, I've been known to. I do that on occasion. Yeah.
But when you do that, it's very hard to remain concerned about the minutiae of day-to-day life. When you know ultimately everything that's going to happen all the time, and it's just a puppet to predetermination.
It makes you a bit of a tool. You're like, Dr. Manhattan, the house is on fire. Please come and save us.
It won't help.
Why? Yes, because in 3033, the world will end.
Yes. And structurally, your body, after being burnt to death, will contain the same number of atoms as when it is alive.
We are all carbon.
Yes.
Ah, my skin, it burns!
But, so they don't take the warning, and he just transports him away from the movie to be concerned later on.
Yes.
Meanwhile, he and Laurie is basically there to keep him happy. That's the way the government sees it.
Yep.
Keep the massive nuclear superweapon happy.
Which is all that any woman could aspire to.
Yes, that's what I aspire to as well. So, she's obviously a little bit not happy about that being her role in life, and is feeling tension.
Yes.
Especially since Dr. Manhattan is a sort of fucking Superman guy who sees all time at once, and it's very difficult to have a chat about Breaking Bad when he knows everything that ever happened or ever will happen.
Yep.
And is happening right now.
He's not the kind of guy to do the washing up.
No, ultimately.
No. For reasons outlined above.
Would you do the washing up? I don't. Oh.
We
have this conversation again tomorrow after I have not done it tonight. But could you do it?
Yeah.
We're all puppets, Laurie. I can just see the strings.
And then you'll do the washing up. Which is a perfectly natural response.
So he suggests that she go visit Dan. Or she suggests that she will go visit Dan in order to seek solace in him. Well, she does.
Yeah.
She does that.
They meet up.
Dan's obviously got a bit of a crush on Laurie. And Laurie sees Dan as a sort of charming part of the life that she used to have.
Yeah. They have a right old time.
They have an old bond in a restaurant. It's lovely.
Right old balmy.
Oh. The next day, the Joker's funeral happens.
Yes.
They all reminisce about their times with old comedian face.
Yep.
But a guy shows up with some odd ears, and Rorschach notices it. The weird earman, Weirdy-Weirdy.
It's his arch nemesis, Weirdy-Weirdy.
Weirdy-Weirdy.
I'm Weirdy-Weirdy, and I'm here to do you in.
You best be a feardy.
Oh, pretty good.
Pretty good. I think we've got a hit on our hands. Weirdy-Weirdy. But yes, Rorschach ambushes Weirdy-Weirdy in his place.
Yeah.
It says, wait, where are the drugs going? Oh no, it's a different guy. He says, what's up with you then?
Yeah.
And he says, well, I just wanted to... Why were you at the funeral? How did you know that Edward Blake was the comedian?
Yeah.
Oh, because he showed up at my place without a mask a couple of days ago. And he was crying and sobbing about some terrible thing he's done, as he often does. No, he never does. He's never done this before.
No.
And he's like, oh.
Otherwise, it would have been sort of pointless to show the scene, really.
Oh, we're all drinking friends, by which I mean he keeps breaking into my place when he's drunk. You know, that kind of friend. We all have them, don't we?
I was yours, I think.
Yeah, you were for a while. Eventually, I just gave you a key and got you to start paying rent.
Yeah. After that...
we cut back to Laurie and Dr. Manhattan.
Yes.
Who are having some sex.
Yes.
Some super sex.
Yeah. 15 pairs of hands.
Yes.
Like we all do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Weird electrical currents.
Yeah. Me and Alan Moore. Back in Northampton.
Yeah. You get your weird tentacles out.
Yeah.
That you've both got.
You have to pass the right, Paul. Don't want to. I don't like this place.
It's a Northampton thing.
Yeah. You wouldn't get it, guys.
All the tentacles come
You wouldn't get it rest of the world.
She's not very happy about having sex with a Lovecraftian monster, so...
No.
She leaves that monster to his work.
Yeah.
And goes to stay at old Dan
Old Danny Boys.
Old Danny Boys.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Dr. Manhattan goes on a TV performance where he is confronted with the fact that he might be giving cancer to a whole bunch of people. At which point he fucks off to Mars. They're just going to fuck off to Mars for a bit, you know? I think I really earned it, you know? Put a lot of time in down at the energy plant and being a super god and everything. And apparently if Russia's got a problem with it, they can just, you know, fuck off.
It's time for this guy to put his feet up.
Catch up on me skiing.
Yeah, open up a Carlsberg and just, just be a bit racist in front of the TV for a while.
And he does that, but on Mars.
Yes.
He fucks off to Mars.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Dan and Laurie try to have sex.
Yes, after having a big old fight.
Yeah.
In an alleyway.
Yes, they have a big old fight and then they try to have sex.
Yeah.
But, you know, they're probably still bruised.
Yeah.
From having punched people directly in the elbow joint.
Yeah. bruised, like got referred pain right down to his penis. And right on the tip of it, it's all tingling still from the violence. So they, in order to solve that, they do what any of us would do. And they go and solve a crime.
They go get dressed up in their old superhero gear that they both still fit in.
Yep.
In spite of like a decade has passed.
Yeah, well, I mean, Malin Ackerman has demonstrably not changed a jot. Yes, 1 iota.
Very much so.
Night Owl changed 7 iotas?
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly 7.5 iotas.
But his costume has cling film on the inside.
Oh, good.
It's like that bit from the Full Monty.
There's a little bit during the fire sequence where suddenly it just bursts like fucking Krusty the Clown.
Oh, good gurgle.
Cut just spills out.
That was my favourite addition to the editor's cut.
During the confrontation at the end. Do you really think I would let you in on my plan if you had even a slight chance of stopping it? They both look shocked and just oh, that's better.
Oh god, it's such a good film. Is the thing.
It's so great.
So they go and solve the crime of several people trapped in a burning building.
Yeah, the crime. It turns out it was the fire that done it.
Yes. So solving that, they get such a rush that they lock up the spaceship and just have real good slow sex.
Yeah.
To the tune of Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah.
Absolutely. As we have all done at some stage or another.
Or aspire to do.
Yeah. I can't get the spaceship right.
So after...
They decide after that, oh, fuck me. Okay. After, when does this happen?
Oh, Rorschach.
When does this happen?
It's just...
After Mars? Before Mars?
It's...
After Mars.
I think it's...
Fuck it. Meanwhile,
simultaneous to Mars.
Meanwhile, Rorschach was continuing his investigation, came to Moloch's place in order to ask him about a company that he was working for.
Yeah.
Moloch has cancer, by the way. He's one of the people who got cancer.
Yeah.
However, he's got a gunshot wound to the old forehead.
Yeah.
So,
didn't get up from that.
Nope. Turns out it was a big old frame-up.
Mm-hmm.
By someone.
Yeah.
Police storm in. He gets arrested.
Yeah.
And he's in prison where he's getting threatened by some of the old villains he put in jail.
Ineffectually.
Nothing really problematic happening, but they plan on using a massive prison riot that's scheduled for a couple of days. They've all got it in their diaries. Prison, 2:00 PE.
They're all really excited.
3:00, got a nice policeman coming to talk about road safety. 4:00, riot.
Yeah. Oh, Gary the Grotto, what are you doing? Why's your leg jigging? I'm just so excited for the breakout, guys. Well, finish your peas. You look like you're ready to go. Sorry, guys. It's all right. We can go back to the next bit. After they've had sex, they think, well, we're on a roll. We heard that Rorschach was in prison.
Sorry, I'm saving it for later.
They break out Rorschach.
Well...
Yeah, I get they kind of do. He's doing pretty well for himself.
He could have probably just walked out if he wanted to, but
they also break him out.
They're
quits.
Yeah, it all cancels each other's out.
Yeah,
and somehow that means that Laurie and Dan have to be in prison. That's how the sum works.
They're all free men.
All free man and woman.
Yes. From man and woman.
Yep.
And they celebrate by John showing up and taking Laurie off to Mars, emasculating Dan in an instant.
Yay!
Rorschach and Dan continue the investigation.
Yes, and they discover that all of the people who got cancer all worked for the same company, and that company was funded by Vite Industries. Vite was Ozymandias, you remember, the smartest guy on Earth from earlier, do you remember?
Forget about it.
Someone tried to assassinate him at some stage, but it didn't work.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I remember.
Rorschach finishes his journal and drops it in the post box of the New Frontiersman, which is a right-wing magazine, and they all fly off to Antarctica in order to confront Agent Vite.
Yeah.
On Mars, Laurie tries to convince Dr. Manhattan that mankind is worth, getting upset about.
Yeah, to give a shit.
Yeah, just worth a shit, It's tricky.
Yeah.
She had pictures on her phone of people, but it was only Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson and Michael Gove. And she just couldn't, it was tricky. She couldn't.
She had an Ian Duncan Smith gif. an Ian Duncan gif.
She had a revolution about her own past.
Yeah.
Which is that she, in fact, is the comedian's daughter.
Yeah. The
comedian had tried to rape her mother unsuccessfully. And then at some later point, the mother had gone back to him and they had had a romantic affair.
Successfully.
Yeah. She gets pregnant.
Yes.
And gives birth to Malin Ackerman.
Yes.
And then, so even though basically all he's done is realize how great Laurie is, and he now realizes that Laurie is great, but her parents weren't, which he didn't know before.
Yeah.
And so clearly, mankind is worth saving.
She's a gem.
And
he's a hologram.
He's a hologram. Let's make music happen. They head to Antarctica as well.
Yeah.
Everybody converges on Antarctica.
Yeah.
Turns out Vite's plan was to detonate an energy weapon in each of the major cities in the Earth, all over the Earth.
Around the Earth,
all those cities.
Yeah.
In order to make it look like Dr. Manhattan, flipped out, murdered everyone.
Yeah.
They've been manipulating him the whole time to make him flip out and act really irrationally.
Yeah.
Screaming on television.
Yeah.
So it looks like Dr. Manhattan's attacked all the world, and all the world unites together in order to fight Dr. Manhattan, thereby ending the threat of nuclear war, which there was throughout the film, so I forgot to mention that. It was the main theme of the movie.
Yes.
Veidt did that.
Yeah.
And all of them, with all their varied beliefs and sort of ideals, ultimately agreed to keep the secret that Adrian Veidt murdered millions of people.
Yeah.
In order to preserve this tentative peace. Except Rorschach, who gets disintegrated, but everyone else.
He agreed to become disintegrated.
He agreed to become disintegrated. Yeah. And his own way consented too.
Yes.
Nihilism. Dan and Laurie get together.
Yep.
Have a couple of Watchmen babies.
Yeah. Probably.
Dr. Manhattan leaves for another planet.
Yep.
Another galaxy.
Yeah.
A whole other galaxy. He just packs up his stuff, gets into his old beat-up Chevy, and drives off to another galaxy. Well, meanwhile, at the New Frontiersman, the right-wing magazine, they are pressed for news because all the wars are gone. What do you write about when there's no wars? I don't like it or approve of it.
No.
Luckily, Rorschach's journal is in the in-tray. Will it get published? Will it undo the piece? Will they just focus on Veidt being a bad guy instead of Dr. Manhattan and nothing will really change? Who's to say?
But japes will abound.
Yes.
The end.
Although the journal doesn't actually contain Veidt's end plan, because Rorschach didn't learn it until afterwards, so it just involves that he was the owner of the companies that hired the assassin. There
is the line, Veidt did it. Or like, Veidt is the one that's responsible.
Veidt is responsible, that's right, yeah.
So...
It doesn't also mention the massive attack. It's like, yeah, okay, fine. Maybe Veidt killed the comedian. Doesn't matter about that, though. Look what Dr. Manhattan did.
Yeah. So maybe actually it's a happy ending.
Yeah.
Ah.
Good old lovable Alan Moore.
Good old,
With his optimism.
Ever the optimist.
He believes in you kids. Do you believe in him?
Sure do.
He's out there, and he's gonna bring you presents next March the 12th. It's very weird. I don't know why, but he'll come and bring you a Celtic rune boot.
Yes, next Winterval, he'll come and bring a stone snake to life on your doorstep. What a guy and what a mind for creating something like Watchmen. So, well...
Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention the very important stuff that was added by the director's cut. So, Paul, what did you think of the film?
Oh, well, Watchmen, the Watchmen that I remember, the theatrical cut, I still love.
Still holds up.
I still love it. It still holds up for all the reasons that I originally loved it, and we'll get into soon. The director's cut was a bit of a knackered old chair of a repair that wasn't needed.
What I found is Watchmen has some pretty big problems as a movie.
Oh?
Yes, which we shall come to. I found the director's cut accentuated the problems without really playing up any of the quality.
No, and with this being a film and not, a sprawling graphic novel, I would argue that it would have been better to leave the extra stuff out because it's just padding that weighs it down.
The qualities of the film were still there.
Yeah.
I mean, the performances are extraordinary, and as a result, when I read the book, I tend to read it in these voices.
Yeah.
Highlights for me are Patrick Wilson as
absolutely
Night Owl Dreiger, who so perfectly plays this sort of kind of defeated guy who you can see is really charming and lovely, but just not as confident as some of the other heroes. And you totally get why he needed the suit, because when he puts on the suit, he looks like a badass.
Yeah.
You can just see the coolness and the stillness in him that, isn't there. He's very fidgety when he's Dan, and just a fucking monolith when he's Night Owl, and you just get it. It makes sense why he'd want to be him.
Yeah, it's an interesting sort of portrayal of a man who needs a uniform, who shouldn't be allowed to dress himself because it just doesn't do himself any favors. It's kind of having to reflect on who he is, on Dan Dreiger.
Yeah.
He is just such an innocent and tragic figure in the way that he goes about his relationship with Laurie, and just dealing with the success or lack thereof of the Watchmen.
Other highlights: Jeffrey Dean Morgan as the comedian. He's not in it much. He's actually in it a lot less than I remember. And that goes for the graphic novel too. I actually reread the novel for this.
Yeah,
he's in both a lot less than you think, but he's such an impactful character.
Yeah,
it's kind of this ultra right wing sort of fascist character.
Yeah,
who just loves the violence of the whole thing and is completely nihilistic in terms of good and evil.
Yeah,
just, fuck it, whatever pays. He's a glutton, and he plays it so large.
Yeah,
so...
if he's not in the film as often as we remember, his presence is just as large.
Yeah, Jackie Earle Haley is also incredible as Rorschach / Walter Kovac.
Yeah,
Just this extraordinary sociopath who very firmly believes in right and wrong. It's just that his spectrum is fucked. It runs through it, even like background actors and stuff, except for Nixon. This movie does not have a good Nixon.
No, it's never had a good Nixon.
The director's cut does not improve upon Nixon.
No, it doesn't suddenly have a less ridiculous nose. But yeah, and I mean, Billy Crudup in both incarnations.
His voice.
Yeah.
And that's the voice. There's never going to be another voice for Dr. Manhattan.
No, it's perfect as it is.
I am looking at the stars. They're so far away, and their light takes so long to reach us. All we ever see of stars are their old photographs.
Yeah. And then all the flashback scenes where he's going through his meeting with Janie and his eventual...
Yeah, you get little glimpses of him before the accident.
Death, just like the energy, like the life in his face is just...
He's just so happy to be here.
Yeah, alive on Earth. There are so many great smaller performances. You got Matthew Good, and you've got...
Oh, God, yeah.
I thought Carla Gugino was pretty good. I know you're not...
I'm not a big fan.
A big fan.
No, I'm aware of her other work from things like Snake Eyes. She's
right.
very sort of big performances she gives. I usually find them a little stilted.
Right, okay. I think it worked for this. I do share what you think about Malin Ackerman, but I do partly a lot of her dialogue was very clunky.
You know what? Send me back to Earth to fry with Dan and my mom and all the other worthless humans.
It is a little. I mean, to be honest, the dialogue.
It's like they don't know how to write for a woman.
This is very faithful, the dialogue to Watchmen. And some of it's comic book dialogue is the thing. That's the issue with it. Is it looks great on the page. It feels like sort of old comic book writing, but when you get it spoken by actual people, there's a hamminess that you're not necessarily as willing to suspend your disbelief for. I'd like to read for you an extract from Watchmen, if I may.
Okay.
This is from just after Rorschach has busted into the research center.
Yep.
What are you doing here, Rorschach? This is a government base, and I hear you're wanted by the police. Good evening, Miss Jupiter. That's Uspeszczyk. Jupiter was just a name my mother assumed because she didn't want anyone to know she was Polish. You haven't answered my question. I mean, find a way of delivering that. Well,
I could give it a go.
Do it.
Good evening, Dr. Manhattan. What are you doing here, Rorschach? This is a government base.
What are you doing here?
This is a government base, and I hear you're wanted by the police. Case QED, Paul. No, you're right. It's what works for one medium does not work for another. And
absolutely.
In Jupiter's dialogue, that was really pronounced.
Absolutely. One thing that does work in both mediums, one place where the mediums overlap, is your ability to sort of fill the frame with detail.
Yes.
And fuck me, did this movie do that. I mean,
God, yeah.
The level of production detail, the posters, the items, the props, the sets, gorgeous.
Yes.
And Snyder's actually working with sets that he built and made things for, not just created on a computer. And spends time in them. We come back to Dan's apartment like 4 times, and I'm sure we spend about 10 minutes of the movie in there, in that setting, and we get a chance to know it.
Yeah.
Which is really important for establishing a sense of place. Exactly.
This sense of place is what it's all about. I feel this city, like I believe that it's this alternate New York exists.
Yeah.
The sets, it kind of shows like an unsullied Zak Snyder, doesn't it? At work.
It does.
It's when you then look at, which is why Sucker Punch was such a shock.
Yeah.
Because
such a sucker punch.
Yeah. Oh,
that's what he
God.
did.
Oh,
you won't believe how shit this is.
That's
Pow.
Very clever. Yeah. And we're dealing with real locations. The shots are all, there's such an eye for detail, and there's such an eye for the mise en scene of
yes, in
every scene as well. I made a note whilst watching it that every frame was a fucking painting.
Yeah, there's extraordinary cinematography, and of course the Snyder used the comic book as storyboard, which means they literally copied frames. You can actually sit there with a copy of the comic book in your hand and look from one to the other, and see like the images being recreated on screen. Which, it does have an extraordinary effect because comic books can be very cinematic in their sort of panels. We'll come to a bit later the idea of comic books as cinema, but in terms of the layouts that artists will choose, they will be very structured to deliver the maximum amount of detail and information to the audience member, and that stays here, and there's a perfectness to it.
That detail there, it shows a love for the source material, a love for the project.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can just tell at every level the care that has gone into this, and it makes it a really sincere adaptation.
Yeah, it does,
and you feel that love.
I think it has to be commended for the boldness of it. It's very long. There are no name actors in it. It's R-rated. It doesn't feel compromised in any way. It feels a little stuffed into because of the medium it's working in, but it doesn't feel compromised.
Yeah. Worth mentioning the fact that the soundtrack was fucking great.
Oh, great, yeah.
Like the original soundtrack by Tyler Bates.
The original score.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was not necessarily prominent throughout a lot of the scenes, but some just stunning pieces of music. One in particular, just look around you, I think, was really reminiscent of Carter Burwell.
Excellent music. Let's get into some of the complaints that people had against this movie, because it is very controversial. First of all, the idea that it's too violent. Now, this is more violent than the comic book. There's violence in the comic book. There's plenty of blood, and it ends in this sort of horrific final image. But like, without mentioning the comic book, is this violence appropriate for this story that it's telling? Does it ever feel gratuitous to you?
Yeah. It does feel gratuitous, but there are moments of violence that do feel very, analogous to the film adaptation of it.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot more. It kind of feels like it's not just the film reveling or Zak Snyder reveling in the violence. I feel like the heroes, who are these corrupted Watchmen, do revel in the violence that they. Yeah. I mean, it's almost directly responsible for Dan Dreiger being good at sex again.
Violence makes you better at sex, Zak Snyder. I think about the violence in Logan. Now, in Logan, the idea of putting the extreme violence in serves a purpose, because it's like demythologizing the superhero. Yes. And it's the idea that all of this heroics that Logan has been doing for the last, however many movies since the year 2000.
Yeah.
Over the last 17 years. This is the price of that violence that you didn't get to see before. Yeah, it's not just a matter of Logan gets to slash a guy and he's like, oh, I'm defeated, and falls to the ground. Here, people getting their arms cut off, their guts cut open.
Yeah, and faces exploded.
Faces exploded. That's what would actually happen. Yeah. And it's really de-romanticizing the violence of the movie, even though that violence is exhilarating. That's the issue that you have to play with all of these things. Is there a similar, maybe, attempt here? The idea that, because like you say, it's not necessarily because the superheroes and we respond well to the violence. Yeah. It's about empowerment through violence. Yeah, there's a lot of CGI blood spatter. Yeah. And a lot. There's excessive blood spatter and CGI blood splatter as well.
Which is the worst kind of blood splatter, at least. I mean, the one really satisfying blood splatter is the physical, the practical effect after the buzzsaw incident. Yeah. But I don't feel like the violence itself is saying much. Because of the way that Zak Snyder and co go about delivering the messages in Watchmen, it really is on the nose.
Sure.
Zak Snyder is not one for subtlety.
No.
If like violence overkill was going to be an issue of the film, somebody would have addressed it.
Yeah.
But they don't really. People are very obviously jaded by years of aggression and warfare and things like that. But there's not a satirical element there, or
No, it's not like, oh look, this is what a comic book thing entails. Yeah. See. Look upon your works in despair, audience. I'm sorry I wanted this. I think Snyder actually even made a comment that he felt when reading the book that Alan Moore wanted to punish the audience for wanting comic book violence. Kind of in a Michelle Haneke kind of way, when he made funny games.
Yes, right.
He wanted to sort of, preach to the audience that were simultaneously enjoying what was happening, which, is never a great feeling. But yeah, it's clear he wanted to sort of diminish that effect in this by sort of having it a bit more playful and cinematic.
Yeah, well, I mean, what Alan Moore was going through when he wrote...
I don't know if you know him, guys, but Jesus, he was having a rough fucking time.
I mean, he had to wake up every morning and look out at Northampton, for starters. But when he came up with the character Rorschach, he said that he didn't plan for people to
like him.
He wasn't meant to be a likable character, and he's demonstrably not a likable character. No, he's twisted by he had the will to do good, but he's been twisted by various things.
Absolutely.
And the fact that everybody really likes Rorschach, I can't blame Zak Snyder for making him fucking cool.
Another complaint is that it's too long. No, I'd say the director's cut is too long. Absolutely. As much as the added length kills the pacing.
Yeah, it's just not needed.
It doesn't feel its length when you see the original theatrical cut. It fucking moves along. Yeah. And there's so many new things, and you're going to so many new places. You just can't slow down enough to think, wow, I've been in the cinema for too long.
Yeah, you get the pacing right. It's... I don't think it's too long at all. I think it's the perfect length.
Absolutely. So, okay, let's talk about the biggest criticism this film has to deal with.
Okay.
The book. This book that we've been talking about. So, I mean, I had read the graphic. I actually, I'd never heard of Watchmen before I saw the trailer before The Dark Knight.
Right.
And it said from the acclaimed graphic novel, and I was like, oh, yeah, never heard of that. Ordered it from Amazon, started reading it at about 7 o'clock in the evening, finished reading it at 3 o'clock in the morning. Didn't stop. There's something compulsive about Watchmen. It's hard to say what it is. It's quite a long book, but it's fucking... it literally is unput-downable. I mean, it's made of glue. So it's you literally can't put it down. Yeah. It's just... I'm still holding it.
It's a horror show.
It really is awful.
It's multi-layered. It's such a rich world. Yeah. It's funny. It's exciting.
Clever as fuck.
Yeah, as with all Alan Moore books, it is... Yeah. It is conceptual like a motherfucker.
Yeah.
And then so I think I saw it a couple of times actually before reading the graphic novel. You lent me the graphic novel as far as I can remember.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, I would say that was a fortunate way of going about it, because I then got to experience the rest of this just amazing world with this myriad stories.
I would, for my part, advocate reading it first, because I do feel it added something to have my first experience of this story being the sort of Alan Moore masterwork, because this is, generally speaking, unashamedly, I would say Watchmen is one of the best graphic novels I've ever read. And if it's not that, then it's another Alan Moore book. It's that. So I would suggest reading this sort of height of the art form as it was meant to be read. So I would suggest, taking in the book first. But nevertheless, yeah, you're right. I know plenty of people who have done it both ways and still really enjoy the film. First of all, was it too reverent? Because there were a lot of other people who were going to make this movie and had plans to change it.
Yeah, so we had Terry Gilliam, who was down to direct for a long time. Gave it up, deciding it was unfilmable, which for Terry Gilliam is saying something.
You also said that about Don Quixote. I think he's just a bitter loser. Oh, no, it's unfilmable.
Yeah, decided now.
Did I raise enough money to make this movie? Nope, unfilmable.
But after that, there's Paul Greengrass, Darren Aronofsky. Michael Bay was down to do it at one point, for God's sake. But Darren Aronofsky wanted to give it, a modern Iraq terrorism.
Erotic
modern terrorism.
I mean,
setting.
The thing is, nuclear war is still relevant now, but when I walk down the street, I'm not afraid of the Russians dropping a bomb on me. I'm worried about some guy on a moped with acid in his pocket.
Yeah.
So updating it in that way to sort of terrorism and guerrilla tactics, I guess, would still have had the same effect of making heroics futile. Because it's like, superheroes here to save the day. It's like you can't stop a guy who's just built a car bomb and parked it on, Wall Street. Yeah,
I'm really glad that the Watchmen that was made was, at least in part, reverent to the original. That we had a Watchmen film that set it in that world that is that world that everybody
Nixon and
loves. Yeah, and I think if you want to do like an updated Iraq terrorism film with the same concepts, then you can sort of take it and work with it and maybe try and make it its own beast.
Yeah, so I think I'm happy enough as well that they stayed fairly close. But in terms
I wanted to see a Watchmen movie.
Sure.
Well, I would have done had I read it first.
Okay. How about some of the changes they made then? First of all, everybody is now superpowered.
Yes.
The fight sequences aren't just, a bit of rough and tumble, like you and me would be able to punch a guy in the face and, thwack. Yeah. It's not that. It's now expertly choreographed, Yuan Wu Ping style exchanges featuring lots of fancy moves. How does that impact, you think?
When you look at it, it's still the same story.
Yeah.
It's just how Zak Snyder chose to
express it visually.
Yeah, express this in cinematic terms.
I guess, and it's like we say that, some of the violence maybe was a little gratuitous, but ultimately it did, I guess, make it more marketable, and sometimes that's the breaks you have to make in order to get your project out there. Another one of the big ones was the Black Freighter. Now, absolutely, the Black Freighter is the easiest thing to take out. Now, just to explain, in the graphic novel of Watchmen, every so often we'll cut to a kid on the street who is reading a comic book called The Tales of the Black Freighter. Yeah, it's a pirate story about a guy who is trying to race back to his hometown to warn them about an attack from the Black Freighter, and on his way he does some pretty deplorable things, and by the time he gets there he finds out that he's actually the biggest threat to the town after all, because he's changed so much due to the awful things he did. The reason it's important is because it's a complete reveal and a surprise who the villain of the movie is. It's Adrian Veidt, the Ozymandias. He spends the whole thing in the background, with only the last book revealing he was the villain. That's a very cramped amount of time to sort of explore the idea of him as a villain and the dilemmas he's faced and the angsty journey he's had. Yeah. Until you realize, due to an expertly sort of done bit of overlay of text from the Tales of the Black Freighter to Adrian Veidt, that actually the Tales of the Black Freighter has been telling his story the whole time. As a result of taking out the Black Freighter, do we get enough time to really explore Adrian Veidt, is the question in this film.
I feel like you get to explore it, but after the event, like after the film has ended, I went away and I thought about it, you know, and thought about his position.
Sure.
So I still got to reflect on it.
Sure.
And I think, unless you are going to do a 5-hour film, a 5-hour version of this movie, that has this fountain style, like this other story told, I don't think it's worth alluding to.
Fair enough.
In the film,
the ending is another big one that was changed.
Yeah.
Now in the film, Adrian Veidt, it makes it look like Dr. Manhattan attacked the whole world at once, thereby bringing everyone together against the common threat. In the original comic books, it is only New York that is attacked by Veidt, and he makes it seem as though a giant, hideous alien that he has managed to create using the genetic engineering technology he's been developing throughout the book. He is able to create a giant alien that he lands on New York, killing millions in a really grisly, violent way. And because it's on New York, it's very obvious that America didn't do it. And it's obvious the Russians didn't do it. And so, everyone sort of unites against this potential alien threat. And Dr. Manhattan doesn't leave, out of necessity. He leaves out of choice. Yeah. How do you feel about the changed ending? Because I remember initially feeling very good about it, but I have shifted a little over the years.
Interesting. I have always been a big fan of the movie ending. Okay. I think it's a really good use of Dr. Manhattan and his powers. He was created and he was brought into the Watchmen and then used as a kind of a tool of aggression by the United States, and he was in the Watchmen, and both of these things slowly become start to corrupt. Power corrupts. Who watches the Watchmen? Yep. And then finally that is used back on the world in order to unite them in peace. Yeah. I think that's quite a nice, neat sort of character arc, and it's a nice, neat plot line as well. Sure. Maybe they just thought that it would look rubbish if they tried to. Maybe. Tried to do a big CGI alien.
Logically, both endings. In terms of camp, I can't remember how I reacted to the original ending. I remember being shocked by the piles of body, and confused by the tentacles that would be intertwined with the dead. But I can't remember how I felt about the fact that it was actually an alien. At the time. Having said that, both endings have issues. Is it that plausible in either situation that the world would abandon all of their sort of Cold War tensions in order to unite against a threat? Why, in the film's ending, would they just assume that Dr. Manhattan's energy strike was non-partisan? Because he is America's tool for warfare after all, and eventually they learn he attacked New York as well. Yeah. But in terms of automating a response and actually being there on the line, would they really dial up America and just be like, did you just attack us? Well, was that you? Well, John. What was his name? Nixon's? Richard. Was that you, Dick?
Richard Milhouse Nixon. If you want to go hunting for explanations, there's always the chance that, you'd be prepared for a nuclear strike, but you wouldn't be prepared for a Manhattan-style...
energy blast.
Energy blast. Yeah. And whilst you're reeling, and maybe, you are...
Phone starts ringing.
Yeah. Hello? Oh, you're joking.
Yeah, wait. What's happened to New York? Never guess what's just happened to Moscow.
Oh, jinx.
Well, they come in threes, don't they? Yeah, that's fair enough. I think neither ending is particularly problematic for me, more so than the other. Yeah. I would say, though, I'm not too fond of how bloodless the ending to the film is, but then again, there is an aspect of horror to that as well.
Yeah.
The idea that just
it's quite
people
cold.
are vaporized and it's just gone.
Yeah.
It's different to the violence from the rest of the film, which is very bloody and visceral. It's just, that the New York becomes a crater. I always feel, I've seen it so many times now, the shot of destroyed New York spends too much time inside the crater that's been created. Like, most of the frame is taken up by the crater instead of, like, the ruins above it. And I feel like a quick reframe would have been better for that.
Yeah, because if that's the direction you're going to go, when you're going to have, like, a cold, bloodless scene of devastation, then have eerily empty streets.
Yeah.
Because all the people and the cars and stuff were vaporized, weren't they?
Yeah, any organic material is gone and just metal and steel and stone remains.
Yeah.
Okay, the biggest change from the movie and the book, okay, bear with me here, is that the book is a book and the movie is a movie.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
I just got it.
Yeah, I didn't have to turn any pages during that film.
I didn't think about that at all.
No.
So
I think what you have to do is the strengths of the medium.
Yeah.
Because Watchmen makes absolute complete use of the medium.
Yeah.
Pushes it to its very limits, and we have to make sure the film's doing the same. So I'm just going to read a quote from Alan Moore. And really, it's quite a long one, but it explains a lot of his attitudes towards film in general. If you only see comic books in terms of films, then eventually the best we can end up with is films that don't move. It would make us a poor relation to the movie industry. What I've tried to do with my work from Watchmen onward is to do things that can only be done in comics. Things that we did in Watchmen on paper could be frankly horrible or sensationalist or unpleasant if you were to interpret them literally through the medium of cinema. When it's just lines on paper, the reader is in control of the experience. It's a tableau vivant. And that gives it the necessary distance. It's not the same when you're being dragged through it at 24 frames per second. That's why he felt this shouldn't be done as a film. The idea of the differences between a reader reading a book, moving through it at their own pace, and he can control pace, actually, because the whole book of Watchmen is 9-panel grids.
Yeah.
So 3 images by 3 images by then 3 images, Every so often he breaks that. He'll put a big image in which takes up the whole page, which slows the reader down. Yeah. Or he'll put lots of little pictures in a row, which speeds them up. He can control the speed you read this. And yeah, he's making use of cross-panel jokes brilliantly in a way that I love, having a character say something in one place and then the next panel has the end of their sentence over a new setting, and it's relevant to what's shown there too, allowing him to do puns, poignant things, all manner of things. He can even use his speech bubbles for character work. Yeah. Rorschach, before he witnesses his horrific event, has nice, smooth, round speech bubbles with clear text. After he's had the horrific thing that happened to him that turned him into Rorschach, his speech bubbles are very jagged, and his text is less neatly kerned. Yeah. He's using every trick in the book. It's like the Citizen Kane of graphic novels, in as much as every device you could use is in there. Yeah. Is the film meeting that standard?
It feels like the way the film has been, I mean, the story itself has been interpreted and sort of put out on film, is the standard is seen as like a level of detail, putting as much information as possible into every frame. And it's not about the film hasn't necessarily used every instrument available. It's definitely used some things very, very well. Yes. It is played to some of the strengths of cinema, being the ultimate immersive experience. You don't have much of a choice how to view a film. It's the director's.
No,
it's the director's vision. You can obviously you can interpret it differently.
Sure, but in terms of your experience of actually watching it, so yeah, I agree. They're not using necessarily every tool in the box, and in fact, there's a couple of tools in there that would kind of recreate some of the effects of the book, like that whole thing of the blissful assembly of like matching things. You can do that in match cuts. I only really noticed one big match cut in this, which is the comedian's crying and a tear drips off his face, and then later in his story a drop of blood hits his badge. Yeah. And it's, shot by shot. It's part of a montage, and it's beautiful. I love that. Similarly, split edits could recreate the whole narrative, moving speech bubbles over a panel. In a split edit, you can have the dialogue either trail the cut or preempt the cut. The audio, that is. So you could have someone sort of start a sentence, then cut, and then have the rest of the sentence. which I only noticed happening the once, when the guy is saying that the shade of blue he has picked is dark enough, just as Murray and Dan are going into an alley. But that is literally almost every single shot transition in the book. It's a few times in the film.
Yeah, I think that the level of detail in the film is different to the level of detail in the book. It's by nature.
Yeah,
it's different. The detail in the book is storytelling devices, the use of tropes, the use of the way narrative is bended to cover or suggest so many different things. Whereas in the movie, I think it's a lot more. Everything is a lot more literal.
Yeah,
for a start.
The editing in the movie is mixed. The momentary editing, which is the sort of composition of shots within a scene, is good. It's very good, in fact. There's good sort of movement around situations and between characters, and there's good building of tension when there needs to be. Some pretty good action sequences when there needs to be in terms of like the composition of shots. The structural editing, actually putting the story together and building it up, and the long-term sort of setting up and paying off, is a bit trickier. Worse in the director's cut, undoubtedly. Characters would disappear from the narrative and reappear half an hour later.
We're treated to stories that, I mean, whilst nice little stories in themselves, subplots about Hollis Mason and things like that, they're not they're not essential to the telling of a story. And in cinema, when you do only generally have maximum of 3 hours.
Yeah, and I always forget who it is who said you should always, when you're making a movie, take out everything until you only have what is absolutely necessary to tell your story, and taking out anything else would result in a plot hole. And then there's your movie. If you did that with this, I mean, it would be very short indeed, and ultimately you wouldn't know or care about any of the characters. The structure of Watchmen, the book, is very episodic. As a matter of fact, Alan Moore, during the production process, suddenly realized the story he had would only fill 6 issues of a 12-issue run. So he alternated every story issue with a backstory issue. And you see that. You see, okay, this is about the tension with Russia and the masked killer again. Oh, and okay, now we have Rorschach's backstory. Or now we have Dr. Manhattan's backstory.
Yeah.
That is a fine structure for a book, very sort of meticulous. Again, a tricky structure for a film, especially if, for example, the story bit in between two of the stories wasn't very important, and consequently you go from Dr. Manhattan to Rorschach sort of back to back.
Yeah. I mean, it's loosely following a chronology, I suppose.
Yeah.
More than anything, it just gives me the sense that this is a massive story in a massive world.
Yeah.
And I'm personally really happy with the pacing in this.
Sure.
In this film.
Absolutely, I would say so. Yeah, I think it does a fairly good example of being sort of purely cinematic, which is what critics, from what I've seen, the critics who are more likely to feel their way through a movie than try and think their way through it. Roger Ebert was always very good at doing that, and he had very emotional reactions to film, and he considered this to be a successor to sort of 2001 in terms of it being purely cinematic and purely spectacle.
Yeah,
and it does achieve that. It tells its story largely through visual means and takes out the clunky dialogue for the most part. There's a couple of nasty little exposition drops, but for the most part it is able to tell its story cinematically. I always thought pure cinema, you should be able to take it right back to the silent times when it was new. You should be able to lift all of the dialogue and just have the image and the music and be fine watching it that way.
I guess then when we're talking about the momentary editing, the structure of a scene compared to the overall structure of the film. I mean, because of the visuals and the music, it tells the story. And I think I've never had a problem with the overall structure of the piece because the mood of all of the scenes has been a constant. It kind of feels like as much as this can be before becoming a bad thing, it feels almost dreamlike the way, like the pace that it has going from scene to scene, but with like the constancy of the visuals and of the music. And I mean, I know the music has gotten a fair amount of stick for being
on the nose.
But I mean, when you compare it to something like Suicide Squad, for God's sake, I mean, that is the example of how to do it badly. Sound of Silence is not necessarily a song about death.
It's a sad song.
It's a sad song, and that is a perfectly legitimate thing to do. There are also moments of great, like Gravity being played out to absolute silence. I think of a lot of the comedians' scenes. He uses silence effectively in it as well.
And he also slows down a lot more than he often does in his movie.
Yeah.
I reckon if you counted the shot length in this, or the scene length, let's say, the length of scenes, I reckon it'd be a lot slower than Bats v Soups.
Yeah. And I think, one of the issues being with his later movies is this whole idea of a movie of moments, without any character arcs or any building or anything
quiet
like
moments
that.
to build character and world. Yeah,
this film has those.
Sure.
And I think it's the right mix of heavy-handed music and visuals with those other moments, because it means you still care deeply about what happens. You're not just being told because there's a song outside by Stained isn't playing when the comedian's sitting on the edge of Moloch's bed. But yeah, ultimately, it is a cinematic experience, and it is not the graphic novel, and it shouldn't be.
No.
And by getting someone like Zak Snyder coming in off the back of 300 with his sort of trademark style, back when his trademark style was good, to tell this story. Through music, through imagery, and through these beautiful sort of moment by moment scenes, I think it deserves defending.
I think so. I'm less fond of it now than I was in 2009, because I remember thinking, wow, that movie was perfect. I don't feel it's perfect.
No, I do cringe from time to time.
It is. There's some cringy moments, and there's some moments which are left unexplored, and some editing issues. Ultimately, I think it's a very fine film. Yeah, I don't think there's any risk of the movie obscuring the novel, because the novel is one of generally recognized as one of the finest graphic novels ever made. It's the only one that I believe exists on Time Magazine's 100 Best Novels. Winner of the Hugo Award. It's monumental. The film is at no risk of obscuring it, so consequently, I feel we can be less defensive in appreciating it for what it is. Yeah, which is a very fine cinematic experience. Yeah, cool. Well, thank you very much for listening to One Good Thing.
Yeah, thank you so much. Episode 30, we did it.
Yay!
Woo! If you want to get in touch, we're on Twitter, Facebook, OGT Pod. You can catch us on Gmail, ogtpod@gmail.com. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Stitcher. You can find us if you put a ladder up against our house.
If you go to the beach and hold up a seashell to your ear, you can hear two Pauls talking about how rubbish the sea is. But the one good thing about it, which is that it brings Dagon. We all love Dagon, don't we, fellas?
That's if we learn one thing from the last 30 episodes, sort of 30 cumulative hours of Paul speaking, is that Dagon is Lord, and that's it, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, that's just all we've got.
Dagon is Lord.
Dagon is Lord.
And Dagon is Lord.
All praise him.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be starting up a new tranche of recommendations month coming up soon.
Roll on.
Pretty terrible recommendations coming up.
When are they ever not?
When are they ever nice? Never. Yeah. Never is the answer to that.
Unless it's Gem and the Holograms.
Thanks a lot, everyone. It's been a hell of a ride.
Yeah. And we'll be back.
Chapped and chased.
Gristled?
Yeah.
And chafed.
And chafed.
Chafed and chased.
For you.
Chafed, albeit chased. Chafed, nay, chased.
Well, on that note,
you can subscribe forever.
I'm Paul Salt.
I'm Paul Goodman.
And remember, the one good thing about Watchmen is all that stuff we said.
You're needed!
Every episode of the show is like a poorly animated anxiety attack in an ice cream factory. Richard Shadow. Yeah.
He's called Richard Shadow.
Nobody's called Richard Shadow. So, Tom Hardy? Ooh. Famous Welshman. Why didn't you just kill me? Your punishment must be more severe. Chuck Bentley.
Barry Big Bollocks.
Africa Wrong Way.
John Froth.
Art Shufflebottom.
Fucking Porn Dave.
Porn Dave. know how interesting you were. Isn't that, in and of itself, interesting?